Hey Shackers, Greg here, and with me is Steve Watts, editor-in-chief of Shacknews.com.
Hey guys.
So Steve, we're going to talk today about the Majora's Mask 3DS. You had a chance to review it hands-on, and the review went up. I have a question for you. You actually had to play it on the new 3DS hardware. Did that take into account when you were reviewing the game, or did you kind of just review the game on its own standards?
I didn't use the new 3DS functionality all that much. I mentioned in the review that I mostly forgot that the thumbstick was even there. Once in a while when I needed to peek around a corner or something, it was a little helpful. But most of the time the Z targeting just is more handy, because most of the time in a Zelda game you just need to be looking forward at any given time.
Right.
I will say that the new 3D, I mentioned this in my hardware review too, the new 3D, the Super Stable 3D is their marketing name for it, but it really does work. And that actually made me play in 3D more in this game than I think I have for probably any 3DS game ever. So it actually did accent that aspect of it, and it looked really nice.
Now, there were some major changes that they added to the game that improved it. They entered a quest book. Did you use that quest book at all?
I used it for the side quests I did. Obviously, when you're under a review, you're trying to complete the game, so that sometimes I would be starting down the path of a side quest and be like, I need to get back on the main path. And that might be what bit me later when I didn't have enough side quests finished to get into some dungeons. But yeah, as far as trying to gather information for doing the side quests, it's super helpful and very straightforward. It tells you exactly when things are happening. It gives names and lists exactly what they're doing at any given time, so you know where to find everyone. It's super handy.
See, I remember playing that game on the 64 and having to write stuff down on paper and remember it.
Yeah, like old school notebook. Yeah. It just does all that stuff automatically for you now. When you meet someone, it just automatically updates the notebook with the new information. And another nice touch of it is they sort of wanted a way to point you towards quests that you might be not looking in the right direction for. So there's also rumor lines that are just we've heard that sometimes if you show up at this time, something will happen, And it sort of phrases it vaguely, but it sort of hints that oh, hey, there's a side quest over here. Look over here. And I think I haven't gathered all 24 masks yet. I might go back and do that, because it's actually a lot easier to do now that I have something sort of funneling me towards the content,
Yeah, and one of the biggest criticisms across the board for a lot of people was the controls for how the Goron mask and the Zora mask worked. How did you feel about the controls when you were swimming and rolling?
I felt pretty good about the actual controls for the different races, I guess you'd call them.
Yeah, forms, I guess.
The Goron and the Zora, it all felt fairly fluid. I mentioned in the review, I kind of wish there was just a quick select for the three races. They're basically the three masks you use the most are the Deku, the Goron, and the Zora. And those are still just in the masks menu. There's a dedicated masks button that you can press that just brings up the masks menu, but you still have to swap them out manually. It'd be nice if there was just a quick select, okay, switch to this other main mask really quick. That would have been a little more handy. I also think one thing that I noticed while trying to navigate an extremely tricky portion of the Goron at the end, there's one part where there's a very narrow path and you really have to be looking straight on when you start rolling as the Goron. And it occurred to me that's a lot harder on the 3DS, because on the N64 it had the analog stick, but at the edges of the analog stick were those 8 sort of cardinal points. So if you wanted to go straight forward, you would press up and it would stay steady on the forward. The 3DS doesn't have that 8 cardinal points sort of geometry. So I found myself sort of rolling very slightly to side and rolling off the edge one way or the other, and it was actually a lot trickier because of that.
Now, can you use the gyroscope in the 3DS to aim the Goron, or no?
I don't know about aiming the Goron. I didn't actually try for that. I turned off motion controls almost as soon as I figured out that they were on. It was one of the first dungeons. You had to aim an arrow very carefully, and I kept missing it. I was like, "What am I doing wrong? I'm aiming so carefully." And then when I released the button, what I didn't realize was when I released the button, my hand was moving slightly, and that was shaking the screen just enough to make me miss. So from then on, I just played with the motion controls off, which is what I recommend in my review everyone does.
So you gave an 8 out of 10. At $30.99, it's kind of hard not to recommend it, but is this game a for sure buy? Should it wait till it goes lower? Or should you just rent it or borrow it from a friend?
I think that kind of depends on where you stand with Zelda. I have some friends who were never really into Zelda, who are never into 3D Zelda in particular. For them, I'd say no, because this is kind of a weird Zelda game. It's sort of for Zelda lovers like me. And I actually love Zelda, with all my heart, but I had never finished Majora's Mask, so this was like my chance to finally finish it. So people that are in like my boat, this is a much more accessible, fun way to play this game that everyone loves and kind of regards as a classic. If you never finished it and you are a Zelda fan, this is absolutely the way to go through and finish it. If you love Majora's Mask, then it doesn't matter what I say because you're going to get this game. But if you're not much of a Zelda fan, I don't know if this is going to be the thing to win you over. You might want to go with a more conventional Zelda game that'll more scratch your itch.
Well, there you go. Well, Steve, thanks so much for your time today. And you guys, for Steve's review and everything else game related, make sure to go to shacknews.com.
Thank you.